Today I want to welcome our guest, Jeff Buchanan, a seasoned city volunteer and fellow member of the Wayzata City Council. Jeff has spent the last 4 years on council. Prior to this, Jeff served 2 years on the Planning Commission from 2017 to 2019. Jeff is an active volunteer and liaison on the city's Energy and Environment Committee, the Zoning Task Force, and more. This year, Jeff is wrapping up his last term on council. Jeff, thank you for being here and welcome to my podcast, and thank you for your service to the community.
Well, thanks for having me. Look forward to talking to you.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, you are, you help spearhead actually the Energy and Environment Committee. And that committee has been incredibly busy over the last couple of years with a number of different initiatives. And I'd like to talk about some of those today.
Sounds perfect.
All right. So we've got quite a list. You guys have been, like I said, incredibly busy. The first is solar. So tell me a little bit about what the focus has been and what the committee has done for the community and the report back to the council.
Right. Well, we're very proud of sort of the work we've done so far. The committee is very active, and it's been something really important to me. One of the reasons I ran for council is I thought there was a gap in sort of what the city was doing environmentally. Not that they weren't, but it wasn't something that was a focus. So I think the most concrete example of what we've done is really the solar initiative on city buildings, and something I started to really investigate my first year on council, even before we had the committee. And frankly, now we're really at the point where we're looking to install solar panels next spring. So pretty exciting. And I think what's exciting is we set out to save money, but the benefit really is the lack of carbon we're putting into the environment and really setting the stage for Wayzata being a green community. So we're really, really proud of that initiative.
Yeah, so you mentioned a little bit about savings to the city.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about how those savings will be realized?
Sure. Well, the first and foremost is the acquisition of the solar panels. Thanks to recent legislation, city saved over $200,000 on acquiring and paying for the solar panels right up front. And over the course of the 25-year life of the panels, we're going to save the city $850,000. And that's really significant. And I think you brought this up during the discussion, is how often do we get a chance to purchase something for the city that actually has a return?
Right.
And that's what's really cool about this. And again, it's not just about the money, but we set out, we didn't think we could save money, then we weren't going to do it. But we wanted to save money first, and then the benefits to the community and cleaner air and what we're doing for our community, but the state overall is pretty significant.
Okay, so before we started the recording, I said I wouldn't ask any trick questions, but
well, we'll see if it's a trick question.
I don't know if it's not intended to be a trick question. However, a lot of companies are looking at sustainability initiatives, and there are mechanisms for measuring increased water or reduction in water usage or emissions of carbon gases. I'm sure there's a plethora of other areas that can be measured. Is there something like that we can do that may not have a tangible fiscal return, but we can show that we're being more environmentally friendly and a more sustainable or green community and really track our usage in those areas?
Well, as I hear your question, I think one of the things I'd like the committee to begin work on next year is water. Water is pretty important to our community. We live on a beautiful body of water and need to be stewards of that. But I think what we do as a city in terms of saving water, I brought this up the other day when we talked about changing water meters out, is how do we measure water usage? How do we encourage conservation? Because I think water is going to be the next thing. In fact, there's no replacement.
Sure.
So we have to be really careful about our usage. So I think the committee will dig into that next year. And figure out how we can help the citizens be aware of their water usage and how do we save it. The second thing I think is what we put on our lawns, and that eventually ends up in the lake.
Sure.
So educating people on how to landscape more environmentally friendly, more sustainability. And that's something we want to dig into as well. So I don't know if I answered your question or if there's more there you'd like to dig into.
Well, I just think we hear a lot of companies that make claims, right? That we want to reduce, our carbon footprint but there has to be a tangible way to actually measure that.
Right.
And so I think as a city, we own some enterprises, right? We own businesses,
Right.
We operate a city, and then we have the community at large. How can we as a city, let's look at ourselves first. How can we be a model for the community and other communities eventually? And how can we track, what we're putting out versus what we're taking in, right? Is there a way to specifically measure those things? And I don't know the answer to that, but I think that would be a great step forward if that's possible.
Yeah, and I think it is. There are ways to measure it based on how much we're letting or having solar take away from our burning of fossil fuels to create electricity. There are calculations. In fact, some of them are, and we could promote this more. And one of the things I'm hoping for with the installation of solar on city buildings is that we act as a model. That was one of the features of doing this is showing we're walking the walk. We're demonstrating, hey, we are concerned about how we get our energy, and we want to be a model for businesses and other heavy users. What we do know is that the majority of our energy usage is done through our commercial businesses, and we've been working hard to encourage them to do audits and to learn how to save energy. And of course, that falls right to the bottom line. But there's a lot of ways to measure, and I think it'd be a great way to, in the future, talk to the residents about what the result of some of this work is, what it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So along those lines, the committee has also looked, and I don't want you to let me forget, we need to talk about who's on the committee because it's a diverse group. And we'll get to that towards the end. But one of the other initiatives is an electric vehicle fleet study, which I was super interested in. How many vehicles do we have that are city-owned vehicles?
Well, the research we did, or the study we did, looked at 33 vehicles. And I think there's a future workshop planned where we'll talk to the council about the findings of that. But initially, it looks like we can save upwards of $40,000 just on converting. That study was about 6 vehicles. The next version or the next iteration of the report talked about even the police cars, and that because they're idling all the time.
Sure.
When they're not idling, think about the greenhouse gas emissions that aren't happening. So. There's more coming with that, and we'll dig deeper into it. But I think, again, the beauty of it is starting with savings, operating electric vehicles. I've had a Tesla for 7 years. I'm never at the dealership.
Right.
There's nothing goes wrong with them. So the savings of maintenance, when we put solar on the public works buildings. And almost 100% of our electrical needs in a public works building will be provided by solar.
Okay.
So we're basically electrifying our vehicles for free. I mean, this
in addition in addition to lighting the buildings and operating computers and everything else.
The crazy savings,
Mm-hmm.
and that'll be really exciting as we dig into that. But certainly the pickup trucks are available, but the police cars, it would be certainly something to look at. It's an interesting concept. I know Eden Prairie has tested with one, so we can learn from them.
Sure.
But yeah, I think this will be really cool to dig into this. And as we need to replace a vehicle, to look really carefully at could this be an electric vehicle instead?
Yeah. So types of vehicles, we've got some pickups in public works. We have fire trucks. We have police cars. Any other kind of vehicles that would qualify under this study?
I don't think we could do snowplows and that. I don't think we're ready for that. But I think if you start with sort of the vehicles that are used a lot, like the pickup trucks and the police cars and whatever other vehicles. So we'll dig deeper into the details of that. But the preliminary results are pretty exciting. So
there's a module or something that gets hooked onto these vehicles, and then they're just driven like they normally would, right?
Exactly. And the study lasted for 6 months and tracked, I don't know how many trips, 800-900 trips per vehicle. And I mean, it's pretty extensive. So
excellent. Because currently now, the fuel that we use, we buy under contract. Am I correct in that?
No, you might be. I don't know.
Okay. Let's go with I'm right. So this would eliminate the need to purchase potentially huge amounts under contract of fuel, gasoline,
right,
to power these vehicles. And then we've got our power from the solar panel. So we're building on all of these different initiatives to be more environmentally friendly, but also to save the city money in the long run.
Again, I think this all starts with saving the city money and being prudent, but then the environmental benefits are very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so we have those two studies. And then when do we anticipate getting the results, or when is the
we have the
council
results. I think it's just now getting on the schedule for a workshop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've reviewed the results at the last committee meeting last week.
Gotcha. So this would be also not something we would roll out all at once. It's as vehicles become obsolete and need to be changed over that we might consider moving over.
Exactly. It's sort of a slow transition, but I think again strongly considering them when a vehicle is up for replacement.
Excellent. So next on our list is the Home Energy Squad visit buy downs. That's a big title.
Well,
so the Home Energy Squad, tell us about that.
Again, as part of our energy action plan was to encourage residents to do energy audits to figure out how they can save energy and, of course, money again. So the committee, I think in the spring, offered $50 towards, which is basically 50% off a Home Energy Squad visit. During these visits, they come in, they do a blow test, they see where all the leaks are, they look at your insulation, and they actually replace every light bulb.
Oh, nice.
That they can with LEDs. So it's kind of a good deal. And with the city kicking in $50, it became even a better deal. This fall, in addition, Xcel Energy kicked in the rest, so they're free.
Wow.
But not forever.
Right.
So people need to get on board and
How long
sign
is
up.
that good for?
I think we have to the end of the year.
Okay.
On that. But
so it's coming up.
So, and this is important. And, getting the word out is always the hard part. We can put it in the portal. We can talk about it. But it looks like we've had 14 Home Energy Squad visits this year from residences. And we'd love to have had 50 to 100.
Sure.
So if you're listening, please take advantage of free. Free is usually a pretty good deal. And and contact either myself or Nick Kieser in the city or Xcel Energy directly, and they're tracking it, so you won't be charged.
So they know that if you give a Wayzata address, that it is a free program to them.
They do.
For being a resident.
Yep, they do.
And is this good for just single-family homes, or can someone get an audit done of their condo or their townhouse?
Yeah, no, I think any residential customer, doesn't have to be a house. It can be a condo or a townhouse. Multifamily is a little different deal, but certainly Energy Squad visits are available to multifamily, and we would encourage those owners of those buildings to do the same, but it's not part of this program.
Okay. So you said if anybody has any questions, they can get a hold of you, Jeff Buchanan.
That's right.
And your information's on the website, on the city website,
yes,
if they need to get a hold of you.
Is, yeah.
And Nick Kieser.
Nick Kieser.
And so either one of you can answer any questions anybody has. Great. Well, then along, as we keep moving through this long list of items that you guys have covered, you've also hosted some events, some very popular events. We had an electric vehicle event and a solar event for the community.
Right.
You want to tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, one of the our goals as a committee is education and helping the community understand what's available and educating. So last year we did an EV event, and I think we had maybe 100 people at that. That was really exciting. We had cars in the lot and really a great presentation. This year we did a solar seminar, if you will, and talked about solar gardens. We talked about solar installations, and then also what we were doing in the city. That was also available on Zoom. Our attendance there was not as
robust.
Thank you. And so we have to keep working on that. But
sure.
But yeah, and I think next year there'll be other educational opportunities that the committee is involved with and sponsors.
Fantastic. I know that the electric vehicle event was a smashing success. You mentioned 100 people, and a lot of great feedback on that as well.
That was really fun.
Yeah. Any discounts on electric vehicles? For
No
Wayzata
discounts. No discounts.
Okay.
You have to work on that yourself.
Oh, darn. Okay. So then we also had an ordinance that came before the council based on some of the work that the committee did.
Right. Well, actually, both the task force, the zoning task force, and the environment committee weighed in on the solar ordinance. I don't think it's in front of the council yet, but it will be. I think there was. Oh. I don't think we've reconciled the two committees' sort of
right.
viewpoints. I think our committee believes that there should be no obstacles for residents to put solar or businesses. And the task force came in and was more restrictive. So I think staff is working out how to reconcile those for something for the council to look at.
Yeah, that's interesting. What I was thinking of was a variance where we allowed some solar panels for private residents.
Yes.
That's right. Okay. So
Yeah.
this will eliminate the need maybe for that, depending on what that ordinance looks like.
Yeah, and I think it can be tricky. I mean, I think if you put a solar array on the ground versus on your roof, there's a lot of things to be considered. I mean, I think the zoning task force was really keen on the aesthetics and the zoning and the environment committee was a little less concerned about aesthetics and more about the benefits to the community.
So there are a lot of new materials, though, out there for residential applications as well in terms of solar arrays. I mean, I think all of us probably are familiar with a typical panel.
Right.
Right. And we remember the panels of yesteryear that were perhaps not the most attractive.
No, those were not.
But now, are you familiar with some of the other options that are available?
There's more and more, and I think it depends on if you're new construction or not. There are shingle products now that look just like a roof, and but that's really only applicable or really cost efficient for new construction because
Sure.
you really have to put a whole new roof on unless you're ready for a new roof. It's probably not a good idea. But panels today are pretty flush. It's to the roof, and it's just more about doing the study and having the solar contractor help you understand if your house or residence really is appropriate.
Sure.
You know, we do live in Minnesota. It's a little trickier than most, but
And we have a lot of trees, and we are protective of our trees as well, and so we have to find the right balance
Right.
between the two, and it's hard to get those sun rays if there's a tree blocking it,
Yeah,
and being as efficient. So working through all of those nuances.
Exactly. But I have to say, more than ever, with the new legislation, solar is much more economical, much more appropriate than it has been.
Are there still tax advantages for individuals?
Yeah, it's huge. And again, you have to do your own calculation with the contractor. But
Sure. Now, speaking of contractors, when we went forward with the contractor for City Hall, there was also an incentive for Wayzata residents if they were interested in solar.
Yeah, I think they have a few $100. They have figured out. I don't actually have the details, but
Okay.
yeah, there is somewhat of an incentive if we there's several incentives for homeowners.
Okay. So maybe Nick is the right person for people to reach out to for
Yeah,
that
Nick, or
information?
we can post that as well. It's probably on the website on our Environment Committee
Excellent.
tab.
Okay. And so we have one other project at City Hall, and that was the LED project.
And I think Nick is really working on that, but we're working to replace all our lighting with LED, and that's a huge savings. If everyone just did that, it's remarkable how much you can save. And really, they're almost the same price as incandescent. Frankly, incandescent puts off more heat than light anyway. So, I mean, LEDs is really the way to go. So yeah, Nick has been working on that as part of our energy action plan, and I think we're on the way to replacing everything over the next 12 months or so.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be fun to circle back in the next 6 to 12 months and share those savings with everyone, and certainly
Right.
with the work that the committee has done.
Right.
So before we move on, tell me a little bit about the makeup of the committee.
Well, it's changed, and as we've learned throughout many of our commissions and boards, getting volunteers has been a little tougher these days. I don't know if it's pandemic related, or we can always blame the pandemic on most things.
Right.
But and this committee, we're busy recruiting right now for it, and we feel it's really one of the committees that the city has is you really get stuff done. It's fun. You can see the results often. It may be more frustrating. In this committee, we really work hard to get things done, and there's so much to do. So we're very organized. We have a work plan that the council approves every year, and we're actively recruiting. We've lost some people this year, and we need to have a very energetic, passionate committee. So right now we're in the recruiting phase, and if you're listening and want to be part of the best and coolest committee in the city, you'd want to be part of the Energy Environment Committee.
That's right. That's right. And when are applications due for consideration to the committee?
That's a good question. When is it the middle of the month? I think middle of November.
I think so. I think that's about right. And then it goes to the council
In January.
December, January timeframe, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So please consider it. I think we'd love to have you. And again, we learn a lot.
Well, you had a student on your committee at one point, didn't you? A high school student?
Yeah. What's fun about it is, part of our charter is to have a student. We thought it was a very important aspect of the committee, and we wanted that energy. And so that's been fun to get the Wayzata high schoolers involved, and we've had a student each year.
That's great.
And again, it's fun to hear their point of view, and it really adds a lot of value to our work.
Sure, absolutely. So we talk about the committee overall, the makeup, the importance of volunteering, and what people benefit from it. So I want to know a little bit about you, Mr. Buchanan.
Oh,
So
oh my.
you were on the Planning Commission. You were the chair of the Planning Commission for a while before you decided to throw your hat into the ring for City Council. What made you decide to get involved in the city? Certainly with the Planning Commission, which is a lot of work. It is it gets little recognition from the general public. But tell us a little bit about your story and how you got involved.
Right. Well, Ken Willcox, former mayor, is a neighbor.
Okay.
And so we're sort of over the fence. We're talking. We don't have a fence, but it's the metaphor.
Sure.
I just sold my business, and I said, well, what's going on in the city? Is there something I can do to get involved? And he said, well, it just so happens here's the application. And so I applied for, I think, whatever people would have, wherever they would have me. And I didn't really know anything about how the city worked. And so I got on the Planning Commission. I was also on the, what do we call not HRA, but the preservation.
Oh, sure. Historic Preservation Board.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Anyway, Planning Commission, boy, you learn a whole nother set of jargon and rules, and it's intense. I attended a few workshops and learned a lot about what the hell I was supposed to be talking about, and it was very instructive, and it was really helpful, that background for the work that we do in the council, because often, maybe a third of what we consider is our development applications, and understanding how that all works, and was really, really important. But yeah, your head gets spinning really quickly, and you know, it's like drinking from a fire hose sort of thing. But all really rewarding, and learned a lot.
Yeah. So then let's fast forward. You're on the Planning Commission for a number of years. Then you decide to run for council. Same over the fence conversation,
somewhat.
Or a different?
I got strongly encouraged by many people, I guess, to give it a shot, and that was eye-opening as well. Just the whole campaigning, and you know what that's like,
Sure.
And the importance of it, and you realize there's no shortcuts. But going door to door, trick or treating for votes, and it you learn a lot. You understand the boundaries of the city of Wayzata and how different every part of the city is. I think people think of Wayzata in one sort of vein, but it's more diverse than I think people realize. And so I learned a lot, talked to a lot of people. Some people brought me in and gave me coffee and wanted to talk. Other people less enthusiastic about my visit, but
Sure.
But nonetheless learned a whole lot about the city and what the residents are interested in.
Absolutely. You do learn a lot. You learn a lot about the community you live in, about your neighbors, and about yourself through the process.
Well, yeah, you're pretty vulnerable,
And
that's also an opportunity to grow and learn, and that I welcomed. But it was hard getting out there and gotta hit the road. It's daunting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's a small community, but when you're focused on trying to reach every single potential voter,
Right.
And have them get to know you and to be able to answer their questions, it's a lot of work, especially when you have another job and you're working around other people's schedules, and
Exactly.
you don't want to be intrusive and be polite with what
Right.
time you're knocking on that door. So
Yeah,
it's
and
tough.
it's very rewarding, and you really and now you appreciate that during this election season, when people do bother to knock on your door, and you know how hard that is, and how much I appreciate people taking the effort.
Absolutely.
It means a lot, and it actually means a lot for me between voting for them and not.
Well, I tell everybody they should try it at least once, and it will change their perspective on how they might feel about local politics, state politics, federal politics. It's a very humbling experience, but incredibly rewarding as well.
And I think what's really cool about this aspect of government is it's where you really deliver the services that touch the residents.
Well said. Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're in charge of garbage collection and police protection and fire protection. This is what the residents really pay their taxes for. And as you go up the chain, if you will, between state and federal government, you're further and further removed. So local is so important, and getting quality people on the council and on the local boards is critical.
Yeah, absolutely. So during your time on Planning Commission and on council, what would you say have been your favorite initiatives that you've either worked on personally or seen come to fruition?
Yeah, well, several. I mean, certainly we talked a lot about the Environment Committee and its work and some of the goals I had set out when I first campaigned. But I think what's been really exciting is to see the development in Wayzata and the quality of development, to see the investment that the city has made in making this community better. I look at Panaway and how that's transformed our access to the lake and just the feeling people have. I mean, walking that area, and that is our most important part. So working on that and getting in the details and totally understanding that has been really rewarding. The next thing I'm working on is this Wayzata corridor study, which is a critical aspect of our future, and getting that right is so important. And so that'll be really fun. So I enjoyed the sort of future planning of all the work we do.
So in terms of Wayzata's future, if you had a crystal ball, what does that look like to you?
Well, it's amazing. As I look, and I do have a crystal ball. So
you polish it up and let me borrow it sometimes.
Yeah,
if you
it's
would.
available.
Okay.
The future for this city is incredibly bright. We are sought after. People want to be here. It's become a destination. It's alive. You know, the energy here is amazing. And I know it's troubling for some, but the alternative of boarded up buildings and not being a focus of development or future would be worse. And so it's important for the council and the planning commission and staff to certainly, and one of our strategic initiatives certainly is thoughtful development. And so let's be really careful. We're a small town really in size, but not in our actions. We think big, and we should. So we have to realize we're part of the 14th largest marketplace in the country. We're part of Minneapolis, even though we're Wayzata. But the future here is amazing, and you know the council, the future council, will have tough decisions to make, but I know they'll make the right ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of that future involves volunteers, and we talked a little bit about some of the committees that are looking for volunteers. It's that time of year where people are either moving on to other things or moving away, whatever the case may be. So tell our vast listening audience, what it means to be a volunteer in Wayzata and how they can put their imprint on this town.
Well, I think getting involved is something I've always liked to do, because then you really know what you're talking about rather than just think of making it up, And so I think getting involved, it is very rewarding, and getting a glimpse of how the city works. And it's intricate. It's not simple at all. We have a lot of revenue streams, and learning about that is really, really important. But getting involved and getting a glimpse of how the city works, and having an influence on its future, I think you will. I mean, the committees and commissions are listened to by the council. We value them, and we need them to be operating at the highest level.
Absolutely. It truly is a partnership, and all of our boards and commissions, including the Planning Commission, they act as an advisory body to the council.
Right.
And so that work is invaluable for us as we live our daily lives and have our daily jobs before we deal with the city issues that we need to deal with. And so we can't do it all. Staff can't do it all. So we really do rely on these volunteers, and have for quite some time. And without them, we wouldn't be what we are today. That's for certain.
Exactly. And I would encourage others. We have a core group of people that continue to volunteer, but it's like anything outside, new opinions, new points of view are vital to our future. We need them. So hopefully you all consider volunteering.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if anyone is interested in becoming a city volunteer, you can apply for open spots on Wayzata's Commission, Authority, and Boards at wayzata.org/CAV application. Thank you for listening to this month's episode of the Mayor Minutes podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite listening app so you don't miss an episode. You can listen to the latest episode and find links to available streaming platforms at wayzata.org/mayorminutes, or stream the video recording on YouTube. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your service to the city of Wayzata. It has been an honor to serve alongside you. And I may continue to call you for your wise and sage advice,
well,
even when you're gone.
I appreciate that, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely.